where the fun begins.
Hello, welcome to the council. We begin tonight's meeting of the council by calling the council to order. Hello to everyone, and thank you for joining us. The council is a live Twitch talk show and podcast discussing Star Wars: The Old Republic. I'm Elise, and with me are my fellow council members, Sakari.
Hey, everyone.
Redna.
Hi.
And Magic Ace.
Hola.
And I did not actually have to make an excuse for anybody being here, so...
Nice, that's kind of cool.
I know how she says make an excuse, like we don't have legit reasons. Not all of us maybe do, but some of us have legit reasons.
Hey,
thank you.
Everybody does, but I don't always want to share whatever your legitimate reason is, so...
That's exactly what I was going to say. She's got to make up reasons because she's not going to overshare.
There are some times where I'm like, they don't need to know this, but blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to tell them this. And she's like, okay.
Tonight we're going to talk about EA and how it's doing with the Star Wars IP.
You can tell what my opinion is because I use the Bulls logo tearing it up, so...
So, Magic Ace, what do they do after tonight?
I'm waiting for my daughter to stop screeching. I'm going to try to get this in quick. Okay, so basically, after our live episodes, we also have our awesome YouTube where you can watch us and see our beautiful faces. That's... We've also got our website, which is thecouncilsotor.com. You can find us on Patreon, which is patreon.com/councilsotor. But don't forget, we have Twitter, which is @thecouncilsotor. And wait, there's more. We also have Facebook, which is facebook.com/thecouncilsotor. And generally just Google us or whatever engine you might happen to use.
I love how she's like this little chipmunk
Good job,
in the
Magic
back.
Ace.
Like a little chipmunk in the back, just wrecking the place.
That was funny.
So now we have to decide what's happened to Magic. She's
I don't know, because it looks like she's dropping.
supposed
Which
maybe...
could be a bummer for the next section.
Yeah, we'll stop and ask her, though, what she thinks when we get back. Let me just do her some...
I really,
Oh, there she is.
dislike Sky.
Don't we all, right? Because I was looking for your camera.
I'm going to be perfectly frank. I just like it enough that the image froze the whole time you were reconnecting, so it didn't actually destroy the frame.
Yeah, lucky me. That was a great shot to be frozen
I
on.
was going to say, you said it, not me, but I was going to
It's
say...
true to life.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so...
Anyways.
Yes, indeed. All right, so the icebreaker is a question we use from week to week just to kind of get chat started. We made a pact before the show. We were going to try to keep this brief because I think we tend to drag it out longer than it should be because we enjoy each other's company. So the question for the night
goes
is...
on and on and on and on before even asking the question. Go!
All right, here we go. Of all of the Star Wars games you have played, which is your favorite and why? Dare I start with Redna?
I don't know. I mean, there's only one answer, so do you want me to give it now or give you guys a chance to give the wrong answer?
You're the contrarian. Hook us up.
Okay.
Be contrary.
There is only one right answer, and it is Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer.
Okay.
100%.
Well,
Really? You enjoyed
all
that
of
one?
us are going to be
an
wrong
amazing
because
game.
that's not
It was so much fun. It was like, yeah. I mean, it's a nostalgia play, of course, but it was a great game that you could play for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on end. And nobody ever complained that they didn't release more content.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Magic.
I mean, that part's not wrong, but...
But which would be your pick?
See, before I said this is easy, and then I put thought into it, and I'm like, oh crap, it's not as easy as I thought it was. So my original easy answer was, of course, KOTOR, because this game wouldn't be near as awesome, or like it wouldn't be near as meaningful if KOTOR didn't exist. Of course, that's coming from someone who's lore oriented. So I realized there's people that play this game that have never played KOTOR still. Mind-boggling, but true. So now I had to put thought into it. I'm like, well, if I wasn't looking at it purely from like lore perspective, and Magic Baby agrees clearly, if I wasn't looking at this from a lore perspective, I would have to say, I mean, the Pod Racer one was a really good answer because I've played that so long. I still have that game in my N64. But I'm gonna have to say KOTOR. SWTOR it would have been KOTOR, but I'm gonna have to say SWTOR, and the reason why is because there's so many ways to play the game. So many ways.
Right.
Whether you're RP oriented, lore oriented, if you're group content, if you're solo play, if you're space Barbie, if you want to make money and just do the GTN, if you like to just go explore and see the world and do all the quests, even the ones that literally mean nothing, they're like 2 seconds and done, like Quesh. I mean, like, really, there's just so many ways to play the game. So many ways. And it caters to a lot of people. And if you just love squashing people and like dancing on their dead bodies, you've got PvP. I mean, there's a lot of things to do. So honestly, it would have to be SWTOR.
And space
However,
combat.
Yeah, but I don't play that. That's all kinds of weird.
But you're talking about all kinds for other people.
But this is my point. Shh, you were giving yours. But if we were talking old school Star Wars, of course I have to say the pod racing game because that was epic. But at least in KOTOR you could play Pazak too. So yeah, I really enjoyed
Pazak, yes. Okay.
Pazak.
All right, so I'm going to say one that I don't think many people would probably agree with, and I'm not even sure I agree with myself, but it was meaningful to me. I wouldn't argue this is the best of all of the games, but I played it more times than the other games, and it was because so much depth to it. And that was KOTOR 2. Arguably not as good, I think, story-wise. KOTOR, and there was a lot they chopped out. We've all, had that discussion. But KOTOR 2, it was the conversations with Kreia. Like hours and hours and hours of talking with Kreia, unpacking, insights and aspects. And
then at the
learning
end
lessons
she sums it all up in like 15 questions. Boom, all done.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. That was awful, but the conversations.
How were you able to play the end? That wasn't released.
It was just like, hey, I'm done.
The content.
One day they just decided, okay, we're over, and they just kind of killed it on there.
Christmas is coming. Cut. There you go. All done.
All right. So Elise, yes, and we saw that. Which would be your favorite game of all of the games?
Okay, I was afraid somebody was going to take it, but also from the Nintendo 64 era, which actually was a very good video game era for Star Wars games. Shadows of the Empire. So
I thought Sakari was going to say that one actually.
I played this game actually with my husband and my son. My son had the book.
Mm-hmm.
It really was awesome, being that it was a multimedia extravaganza kind. It was supposed to be the tie between 2 and 3, the original 2 and 3, whatever, and the book and then the video game, and they all went together to kind of fill that gap in between, Return of the Jedi and Return, whatever. So, it was awesome.
I do have to make an honorable mention of Star Wars Galaxies. I did spend hours and hours. And I'm not going to even go into it.
Because then I had to say Battlefront. Tables, I guess, is some people's preference.
I was a total Cantina rat. I spent more hours in the Mos Eisley Cantina than anywhere else in that.
I'm going to be honest, actually. We could have a totally different list, and I know we've got to move on, but that would be one of the Star Wars games I most regret having never played.
Really?
Yeah. Which one?
Yes.
I think
that is this.
Galaxies?
Yeah, Galaxies. It's the singular game that, I was just in a whole different, I wasn't online gaming much. That was, post my World of Warcraft stint and pre this, and I just never had the opportunity. And of course, by the time I found out it was something I should experience, this game was coming out and it was too late.
Yeah, no kidding. I showed some footage the other day on a stream of the old Jump to Lightspeed. Somebody taking out that Corellian cruiser. It was really cool. It made me very nostalgic. Anyway, we do have to move on. We are foregoing the straw poll tonight because we have a lot to discuss with regard to articles that we have shared, and we'll probably share some of them as we go. Screenshots of certain things, etc., etc. But what we wanted to do was, and I wanted to ask our viewers this as well, as we kind of get into this next section. Is anybody in our chat aware of the, the change.org poll or petition that went out this week? I don't know. Were you guys at all aware of this? Is this something that you guys heard of at all this week?
Oh, this is for us, not chat.
I'm asking them and you, but I want chat to. Well, you're telling me if you heard it or not. I would like chat to have a second hand.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Both on
I've seen it
Twitter and
on your Twitter. That's it.
Okay. Rakenji has answered yes. For our chatters, our viewers, is there? Did you guys take a second to sign it, or did you decide not to? If you decided not to, well, either way, explain to us why you did what you did. I'd like to hear from everybody. I actually signed the thing with reservations. I mean, like, for me personally, I don't think change.org petitions do anything in the whole world at all. I mean, like, who cares if 280-something thousand people said, "Hey, yes, we want this." You know, that doesn't quantify how many people don't want it, and it's not an official vote on anything. So it's a nice expression. It's a feeling of solidarity. I'm sure maybe some people respond to it, but those are all kind of reservations I had in my head. But I thought to myself, why not? You know, like, hey, I like this game. I want this game to be around. I love this game. I'm gonna root for it. I'm gonna say, hey, you know, that was my attitude with regard to this. Now, did anybody from the council? Elise, did you sign it? You were the one. You said you were aware of it. You decided not to. Magic, you said that you saw it on Twitter.
So you retweeted, I think it was. So I glanced over it, and I thought, good idea, and clicked off of it and did not vote because I've never seen a petition.
That's probably what I should have done.
I've never seen a petition do anything except for get a politician on a ballot. And so for me, there's not really much of an incentive because that's what it's connected to in my brain.
Okay.
Also, long story short, because that takes a lot of time and effort, and I don't want to get sucked into Twitter fights and become one of those people where I'm like, no, this one's good, or no, it's not good, or I can't believe you didn't like my idea. And I just don't care to be that person. So I was like, good idea. Gone.
Okay, I'm glad we have some diversity. Redna, did you hear about it or not, or did you have any?
Well, apparently, I saw somebody who they posted it on the 26th, and around the 27th, I noticed it, which I guess would be yesterday as of the recording.
What is this?
And well, I guess I don't know. Do you have the slides? Do you want to put it up? We can say.
Sure. I mean, the one that
I saw Shintar Commando go ahead and put his tweet out there saying, "I don't know how I feel about this whole hashtag SWTOR petition thing. It was clearly set up with good intentions, but what is being asked for isn't the kind of thing you achieve with a petition, and asking for a revival implies that the game is dead to begin with. And due to points 1 and 2 inherently limiting the support it's going to get, I fear it's mostly going to serve as a bad PR for the game more than anything." And so what I took away from that was that he was concerned that this would be, or she, is Shintar, okay, that she was concerned that this would be a bad PR move. My first reaction was not to even look it up and find out what she was talking about, really. It was just to say there's no such thing as bad PR. And then I was like, I'll go and look at the thing. And then I came back and finally responded to her and said, seeing as I have no idea what you're talking about, I don't think there's much to be concerned about. Because, nobody's going to even notice one way or the other.
I mean, that's one thing. The other thing is that, and maybe we'll get into this, but we'll use the kind of funny games thing, and we're going to talk about it in a little while. But those of you who watched it, how much time do they spend mentioning? That's one of the few that actually mention SWTOR even exists. If you read the rest of these articles, when they go through all of EA's games, SWTOR is almost never mentioned.
Yeah, it's not even a footnote.
It's not one of the games they mention.
Not a great sign.
It's not a great sign, but I actually completely 100% understand, because everybody, whenever we talk about this greater subject, they're talking about what has EA done since Disney gave them an exclusive contract, and this game predates that, and so it's just left out of the conversation because it has nothing to. This game was not done post the exclusive contract.
Because nobody ever talks about this game. Like, seriously, I have watched so many Star Wars fans, and when they go through the list of games, SWTOR is never mentioned. Or it's a good game, but it's not really all that awesome. So play it for the base stories and move on. Play it like a single player game. That's the best that I've ever heard, and that was Skill Up. So, I
the change.org petition is good,
say, but
because it's some PR, and some PR is better than no PR.
And SWTOR's not doing any. I mean, they're
Yeah.
doing very little. So, I mean,
Yep.
What are you talking about? They're doing marketing. They just have such good targeted marketing that they understand that you and I and we all play the game, so they don't target us. That's why we never see any advertisements.
Not even in the movies, not in any other Star Wars games.
I've seen like maybe 5 or 6 commercials for this game, period, and they were all before
Wow.
launch.
I was going to
Except
say, it
for
hasn't
one.
been
Okay.
recent.
Yeah, because I was if that was post launch, I'm gonna be like, man, that's 5 or 6 more than me.
Yeah. No,
Right.
I mean, this
Well,
does recall for me like the bad feeling did that whole Debbie Sue
That's who I was
Wolfgeld
quoting from
interview,
that, yeah.
right? Yeah, and she was their marketing person and unpacked it that way. It was like, you understand that if you're not seeing the marketing, it's because you're not the target audience. But I mean, surely there'd be some bleed over. I mean, if I'm looking up a Star Wars video on YouTube, I mean,
That's
how
like
is it
saying
that they
nobody
know
has
I'm a
any kind of
SWTOR player?
diversified taste.
Yeah, I mean, like I should stumble over it somewhere. My goodness.
with the way that Google does its market, I mean, it's ads, targeted ads. If you look up something with SWTOR or Star Wars video game, if they were truly doing something, an ad should pop up. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an Anthem ad or a Warframe ad or a Destiny ad, and I've never seen an ad since I started playing this game. Never.
Dude, if nothing else, they should be freaking pre-rolls on Twitch streams. But the number of times I've gone to a live SWTOR Twitch stream with the Des and everything, and the pre-roll was World of Warcraft. Just saying.
Ouch.
Just saying.
That hurts. That burns. So, but it does. So we have, on one hand, we have this change, .org petition because somebody out there felt like this game is deflating, right? And felt like, hey, we need to do something to make sure that the community knows we don't want this game to deflate all the way gone. We don't want the air to run out of this balloon, right? Somebody felt that way, and so we have that sentiment. By all means.
I didn't sign it because I don't put my name on things that can be tracked back to me and held against me. And in our society today, I'm not taking that risk. Thank you very much. That's it.
I also just don't want everybody to know who I am. So if I signed it, it would say Magic Ace. That's it.
Yeah, or they spam you after that. Like you get an email and you're like, great, because I supplied my email address. And it's for like the Save the Nautilans Fund or something. Will you give money to save the Cellcath? Like, what?
I would like to say too, and I know we have to move on here pretty soon, but just a last thing. This is really, to me, we've seen this over the last year or so, though. Not this petition, but there's been, at least on Reddit anyway, there's been multiple conversations about, well, when Anthem releases, the game will get back to where it's supposed to be. Well, when all the devs come back from Anthem, or when they finish paying for Anthem, then they're going to give more money. And so this is just kind of the end of that the last year,
well, in
conversation
the petition,
on Reddit about.
He mentioned in his petition, now that Anthem is about to come out and they had taken a number of our developers, it's time for them to allocate resources back to us. Don't you think? Sign my petition, And it's the irony being, as we talked about before, and having played their demo this weekend, for the love of God, we better not get a single one of those back, because if Anthem fails, BioWare closes, and Anthem could fail the way it's coming out right now. It is bad.
Okay, well,
Keith has already said that that's not the case. He got up on bad feeling and said that he was asked directly, are resources being and developers
allocated
being
away?
And
yeah.
he said no.
He said that outright, which says to me, no, they didn't reallocate resources. Those resources are gone.
Yeah, they got rid of them.
Yeah.
Which honestly,
different job with the company.
Or what they say,
But let's
EA
be
says,
honest,
hey, we're terminating your contract. By the way, here's a new contract. So it's not like you're
That's what I
taking
was trying to
resources
say.
away.
Right. So it's
Yeah,
not
they're all
called reallocated. It's called your contract's up. Hey, we still have an open position elsewhere. So therefore not reallocated.
Yeah.
Do you guys still work for BioWare? Yes. Do I work for Star Wars? No. I just got over here now. So no,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Right.
reallocated.
Star Wars games? Since when?
No, I'm saying no, it wasn't the Star Wars game, but we still
Right.
have other BioWare things for you.
So like I was saying, somebody figured out, they had the feeling that something like this wasn't right? That's why we have that. So, and we were even discussing last week before I think that came out that hey, we should probably take a step back and do an episode on EA as a game publisher who has the lone licensee for Star Wars games. How are they doing? Right? Because there have been some changes to how Star Wars was as gaming before EA took the contract and now. So I'd like to unpack that a little bit. We've got a lot of articles that we're probably going to share some to chat as we go, as we mentioned them. At this stage, I kind of want to throw the ball to Elise and say, Elise, you've, out of all of the members of the council, you're the one that studies the industry the most. Give us a like an overall perspective. Would you say EA is doing a decent job with Star Wars games? Yes or no, and why?
Okay,
and then we'll go from there.
I think a good way to answer that is to sit down and look at the number of games that we had prior to EA taking it, and then how many games does EA put out?
Okay.
And they've only put out since 2013, which is when the contract went into effect, 2, right? Battlefront 1 and 2. And then 2 mobile games. So 2
it was Galaxy of Heroes, Galaxy of...
And 2 mobile games.
Not good on the mobile.
And then you have the 2...
Actually, I don't think you can include the mobile games because that's not part of the exclusive contract. They were given an exclusive contract for everything except mobile games. So their mandate is actually for the non-mobile games. So I refuse to acknowledge.
That's fine, but that's
because they're not competing, right?
Games, so
they are competing in that arena, I guess.
And then we have the Respawn game, which originally Respawn was a contractor. It was not an EA-owned studio. They were working with EA, and they were going to be published. This game, Jedi Fallen Order, is going to be published by EA, but Respawn actually got bought by EA because a South Korean, hedge fund or something was making a bid to buy Respawn, and EA exercised a contract thing that they had to be able to buy any company that's working on a Star Wars game because of their contract exclusivity. So
Talk
then they
about hostile takeover. My goodness.
They ended up buying Respawn. So that's how that game came in, but that would have been a published game, not a developed game.
The saddest one is when there's a game in development, right? They're coming up with it. Here's a studio working on it. EA exercises that right, incorporates them in, Hostile takes over the game, and then shuts the studio and the project down. Like, even if they continue it for a while, when they let it fizzle out, that's like the saddest thing in the world.
Right. Which is not what happened with the Visceral game. Might as well just go into that because that was kind of a good segue, whether you meant to or not. Visceral was an EA-owned studio. So... and
the studio was owned by EA. Yeah. Was.
So the studio was owned by EA, right?
Right.
That whole thing is just very just sad all the way around. There were so many people who were so excited about, that we had Jade Riemann who was going to be helping with it, and then we had Amy Henning. So we had kind of one of the first female-headed studios. Lots of fanfare about that. Mm-hmm. And then, and as I had been saying, it was the remnants of Star Wars 1313 staff plus the folks who made Dead Space. So if you've ever played the Dead Space games, that's Visceral. Excellent.
Yeah, and there were tons of people that were like, oh my goodness, Disney made this purchase, 1313 is never going to happen. And then we had a possible spiritual successor because so many of those people went into Visceral and were assigned a Star Wars game.
Yeah. And they all got moved when LucasArts went down to that studio. So that was like their third brush with death. Then that one just didn't work out, if you know what I mean. And then they just canceled that earlier, the end of last year, right?
Yeah.
It was before 2018. So it was in December. They canceled it again. So first they canceled Visceral because they decided that they needed to do a games of service game, not because they said the gaming consumer did not want to play single-player games, and they needed to make it a games of service. And then, of course, God of War came along and went, ha, 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 silly people. And then when they closed Visceral, they moved it to the Vancouver studio, for them to restart the process and start all over again. And
By
then
restart, it means take the art assets and make something different.
and they were supposed to now. So they shut the door on that, and now so that they said that they can make something earlier, like in 2020, I think, right? Something they want to try and make a game in a shorter turnaround, because
Yeah,
the
I
one
love
they
the
were
fact
working
that the
on was going to
premise
be
is
longer.
we've got a couple years into this game, and the scheduled release date is too late. So we're going to throw away those years worth of work in order to rush a new game out in a shorter amount of time, aka major money grab. And also, oh, we need to actually say we've released more than one Star Wars game.
Right.
Now,
Well,
this is EA's MO, though. They don't like long periods with no games. So they tend to
You mean like 2017, where company-wide they released 4 games?
No, I mean, that was
Right.
kind of unusual. We're talking about they tend to 2 years is kind of your limit. Remember that if we talk about Battlefront, Battlefield, and all those ones, Battlefield comes out once a year, right?
No, but that's
Roughly?
the dumbest, most asinine argument
And
for a AAA studio on the planet. Like,
but
they're the ones that actually have the monetary assets to develop a big game over a larger
I
period
know,
of
but
time.
that totally has to do with investors and being able to maximize profits in the shortest amount of time. And it totally follows the Call of Duty thing. And Activision blazed that trail, and EA's just keep it up. So
yeah, well, I think it's because
that's just the way that the market, at least for that, seems to work. Is
Yeah.
those annual things, and it follows also EA's kind of wheelhouse. There's the sports game
sure.
publisher. So FIFA comes out every year. There's a new FIFA and a new NHL.
Well, okay, so I shared some of this last week, but I work in real life in a team that works on software, right? And so you get a lot of the same kind. There's a lot of overlap, I think, in some things, and a release schedule is one of those things. Like they agree, hey, here's when we're going to do a release, and that allows them to plan the whole year around, hey, we're going to come out with this at this date. And so for software development, that kind of a thing is actually good. It helps to manage customer expectations. It helps everybody stays on this. You can plan a calendar compared to if you don't have that iron expectation, then what are you dealing with? Well, you're moving deadlines out, for instance, and you know, so.
This would be because EA is not a software development team. They're an entertainment center.
But it's still software.
They're trying to run their business as a software development team, and that's why they are miserably year after year after year stumbling and failing, except for their singular cash cow in FIFA, which itself is even on the decline.
Right. Just recently, though. So, I mean, $800 million FIFA Ultimate Team, which is just one mode. So, if Quest Ball made $800 million, that's what we're talking about. It's one
they
mode
gave me more Hubball maps.
$800 million just for that one mode in FIFA. That's the wheelhouse of the thing, where they can put out games that they're not going to make money on, like Unravel and Unravel 2 and No Way Out. Those games, they didn't actually anticipate them to make money. They could just afford to publish them as their community, their community service project, and they just happen to make money. But anyway.
So I'm going to ask noob questions as we go. Okay, total noob question. Could it have been that maybe Battlefront 2 and the flack that they got over the whole thing really threw their whole monetization model on its ear, and as a result that slowed down their response? Like they may have had more planned and was all going to use that software, that monetization model, but now we can't do loot boxes, so what are we supposed to do instead? Come up with something new? Could that have slowed everything down?
I mean, you assume so, because the rumors that came out of the Visceral prior to the Visceral closure, and did we put that article up here, Jason Schreier's article? Maybe I didn't. We'll have to put it in the show notes. That came out a year ago, I think, right as the whole Visceral closure was happening. And I think he put it up again because he went back to review it after the EA Worldwide shutting down the game. Finally, he brought up the whole monetization thing that was said to Amy when they were talking about basically making Star Wars Uncharted. And they were like, well, FIFA makes $800 million. How are you going to make that kind of money in this game? You need to tell us how you're going to do that here.
Right.
So clearly that is something, and with them moving from a single player game to a games of service, which historically make more money over time than single player games do, and have longer tails. Um, Clearly those are their ideas. Um, the money piece obviously was important.
Right.
But is that the only reason? I don't know. There was also rumors, Jason Schreier again, um, on the most recent news, said that he had been told by sources that were in the company when the deal was made that, okay, so Andrew Wilson, who's the CEO of EA, right,
Right.
came in after that deal was signed, and he is unfond of the deal. So I think that that is a major factor as well. That if the CEO feels like he's
Mm.
doing somebody else's business and he wouldn't have signed the deal if he had been in, how thrilled are you going to be to have to put up with all of the restrictions? And I'm sure there's restrictions, it's Disney,
Right.
and responsibilities and requirements of this deal that you didn't sign, you don't
Right.
like, and now you have to
You're having to, you
suffer
basically
through.
somebody else made the bed and you have to lie in it. Essentially,
Correct.
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I really do think that's a factor too.
Plus,
Um,
what do you
and
think about like Disney red tape? Is that maybe complicating it? Because you're alluding to some of that in what you say.
yes, and also remember when you talk about a licensed IP, you have to take about 30% off the top of your profits and give it back to Disney before you get to like get any of your own. So
Right.
if I mean we're talking about EA, they're all about making the money. How excited are you going to be to to do that? And then, while you're spending all your time worrying about this, you're not taking care of your own IPs, which make you money, like that you don't have to share with anybody else. So
Right.
I can only imagine that that's like a factor too. So I'm kind of surprised, frankly, that they bought Respawn. But I mean, again, if they had let Respawn go, then this, other company would have had, their hands in their little exclusivity clause with that game that they were making. And I mean, as much as Andrew Wilson doesn't like rumors allegedly dealing with these games, I doubt he
Yeah.
wants somebody else with their hands all in it either. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think we're going, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think we're going to get a whole bunch of games until Andrew Wilson gets out.
So you think it's interesting? It's more of a person at the helm kind of an issue.
I don't think that's the whole story, but the CEO is the one who wheels and deals and makes like the money decisions. And if your CEO isn't on board with a huge deal like this one, a 10-year exclusive with Disney, who is known to be a severe wheeler and dealer, and do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like Disney's not they're a pro in the business world. I can't think that there's very much wiggle room for having much control. I
Yeah.
don't. I think Disney is probably all over that.
Yeah. So,
So
so
mhm.
we have a comment in the comments here, like between FIFA and Star Wars. Those are kind of apples and oranges. How is it that you can compare those as separate, very separate genres, very separate types of games, very separate audiences, both which happen to have the same publisher? Let me ask you guys. Maybe Edna, you can chime in on this. Like what is the uh, what is FIFA? What role does slowing FIFA sales, for instance, have? What does that indicate? That it may have some kind of a reflection on Star Wars gaming, and then SWTOR as a Star Wars game, as a
Generally, I think that
subclass of
EA
that.
isn't. I don't know. I don't think. Let's put it this way: EA doesn't do story. EA doesn't do good single player experiences. EA doesn't do deep. EA does cheap commercial knockoff one year after year after year. And look how BioWare as a company has been producing games since EA purchased them. I mean, it's been how many years since they had a successful game launch?
2014.
2014. Okay, so we're 5 years. We're going on 6 years since Disney had an exclusive contract with EA to produce Star Wars games. In that time, I would argue they've released one game, 2 iterations of it. The first of which took one of the most beloved movie franchise deep storytelling entities of all time and released a video game with no story. And so then they followed that up with a game that had some story, but they completely butchered their entire player base with the loot crate scandal and didn't get any sales to speak of out of it. So certainly wouldn't compete on the level of a FIFA because they were trying to con money out of people, rather than actually provide them with a game that they like to play.
But it's the pay to win aspect, because like there's loot crates in Overwatch.
Yeah.
So once in a while, like every time there's an event, I spend like $5 on loot crates because it's cosmetic stuff I'm getting. So I don't mind loot crates. It's the locking it behind getting these crates that you have to pay for to get to in order to compete. That's the problem. It's not loot crates in general. Just
or paying extra money on top of having to buy the game in the first place. Thanks very much. Mm-hmm. But then you have to pay extra money in order to be competitive at the rate. Because that was what they ultimately were trying to do was, you can spend 480 hours playing the game and get the items you want, or give us a couple $100 extra and get that done in a couple weeks.
So the connection here, though, for EA is that they essentially attempted to replicate FIFA's Ultimate Team mode in Battlefront II.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, exactly. They tried to inject it. And
yeah, that's a good point. So, because let's unpack that a little bit.
The Ultimate Sport is actually a fairly natural extension, and quite frankly, it wasn't original to FIFA, but it was a natural outgrowthing of the FIFA game and what the content inherent within that game, being the players and whatnot, had.
Yes,
was having their ultimate game. They tried to force that concept onto something that does not naturally have it. Does not work with Star Wars.
Remember, the person who championed the Ultimate Team mode and all of that stuff was Andrew Wilson.
Right. So we're starting to see a picture come together here. So to me, it sounds like they try something with one game. Oh, here's something that really works. Let's pull it out of context, pull all the soccer off of it, and use that model and put it into something Star Wars. So how can we make that happen? Oh, well, you've got troopers and troopers. Let's make them fight with each other. Right, so there you go. It lends itself well to esports, I think.
Well, if you think about it, for those of you who don't know what this mode is, it's like a trading card game. The Ultimate Team is like a trading card game where you buy packs and you get a player, and then it's like a trading card fantasy.
It's like Yu-Gi-Oh!
Soccer game.
Right. You buy the packs, and if you get the lucky card, then your deck is better than everyone else's.
Right. So they attempted to replicate that in Star Wars, but instead you'd get characters and guns and power-ups and all that kind of stuff. And the people who were lucky or who could buy a lot of the packs had a higher chance of getting all those things.
Gear and equipment so you could play better in the game.
Right.
Because that's pay to win.
So, of course, when they pulled it out, and I mean, Sakara, you played Battlefront II before and after that, right? Or at least after that? Well, they pulled it out before release, so it had.
They pulled it out before release. In the beta, they didn't incorporate the intensity of what they were actually going for.
I tried some Battlefront 2 last night. I tried some last night. I would get destroyed by people that have all purple cards. I thought, let me look for the space combat. I couldn't find it. I don't know what they've done. It's been a few weeks since I last played that. I just wanted to fly a TIE fighter for a while, and I couldn't find the TIE fighter. I couldn't find it. I was moving between the menus going, I know this was a part of this game, but I can't find it. So one thing is, like, if you don't stay on that story, if you don't evolve with them, you get left behind very fast. And I mean, like, here I'm with a couple of blue cards and a green, and the purple cards are smoking me. I can't find stuff in the game anymore. This mode doesn't work anywhere like it used to. So you almost get punished if you drop off.
That is the whole money-making piece of games of service games.
Yes. You have to stay with it.
You have to constantly chase to keep up with the Joneses, because if you don't, it makes the game excruciatingly painful to play.
It makes it no fun to play, which is why I don't play
them.
Right.
So do you think this is hurting them?
That's what
then?
Anthem's going to be, and that's what EA.
That's why I say this is not going to work.
So, and that's why EA keeps pushing it, because if you're afraid of getting left behind, you may be willing to spend a little bit of money if you know that you can't sit there and grind for hours a week. And so there's I know not everybody does, but there are.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, for me, like, I'm not so into a game that I'm gonna pour more and more and more money into. Like, once in a while for an event or something, like I said, like $5 on crates. But I already spent $14.99 on this game, and once in a while, like for 2 or 3 months in a row, I'll play WoW or something like that. So it's like, by the time you add all that money up, like at the end of the year, I could have bought 3 or 4 single player games, you know? So I'd just rather not waste my money on crates and whatnot. Like,
right, but even your $5 here and there, there's how many millions of people that might be spending $5 here or there. So it ends up being, if they charge you $60 for the game, plus you go and spend $5 every event, which might be quarterly or monthly or whatever, that's still how many millions, billions of dollars, and that's how Ultimate Team is getting $100 million in a year.
Oh yeah,
so
like, I'm all about the seasonal things. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on now. It brings me back. I'll say that I think one of the elements of it is it helps bring people back. You get to play in other games. You kind of put it aside a little bit, and then you're like, oh, there's an event going on, and you go back for the event, even if you don't primarily play that game. You come back and you play for a while, and then people buy the loot crates and things like that. Okay. I think that is a much better model of it, in my opinion.
So it's like a content locus trap, almost like where they realize people are off devouring something else. How do we get the content locus to swing back by for however long they're going to be in town?
Well, don't forget too that this entire monetization model is built off of the fact that they had previously thought that it was a really good idea to release an incomplete game and then make you pay to get the extra chapters to finish it. You know, they used to call that DLC, right? Right, DLC. And at first people were like, you know, that was also a natural extension where they released a great game that was actually complete, and then it garnered such success that they were able to put some money back at the developers and say, hey, add some extra chapters, add some side stories, do, you know, some extra stuff, and we'll release that to them. But then they built their business model around, hey, we can make extra money by selling them extra bits and pieces. So let's sell a game,
remonetization,
and then next month, give them the next piece of it, you know, and, you know, piecemeal out. And, you know, and everybody was like, well, excuse me, you know, and it's the same thing too. Like, hey, here's your reward. If you pre-order, you get 2 weeks early access. Until everybody realized, oh, wait, 2 weeks early access is really, you can be our final beta testers. Pay to go through the grind of finding the rest of our bugs that we haven't fixed yet.
Oh, so, man, Shadow of
now
Revan.
They're not calling those beta testers. With the Anthem model, now they call it a demo.
Yeah.
You played their demo, and that demo said, hell, this game is never going to be worth playing. Of course, if it really is a beta, if they had told me that, that's a different aspect. Then I would, you know, respectfully say, okay, good, I expect these things to be resolved in the beta. Except actually there are more problems than that, but you know, you get my point.
Okay, so back to EA. Yes. The games of service is just DLC without being called DLC. They don't want to call it DLC, so I agree with that. So now what we have is an EA that is getting smacked around by financial analysts for having average to uninspired selling games outside of their sports games. Who has the exclusive rights to make Star Wars games until 2023.
Until 2023.
Till 2023.
I really want to know what the escape clause is and just figure out how to pressure Disney to activate their escape clause.
It's a 10-year exclusive. I'm pretty sure it's 2023. That's 10 years from 2013.
Yeah.
I really wish there was more of they keep their ear to the ground more and watch for those little projects people are doing that are like, hey, I'm a dude in my computer in my room, you know, in my basement, but I start putting together some model and then I start whatever, and before you know it, I've got an Epiron or whatever, the reboot of KOTOR going on. Hey, here's a really cool thing, and then the legal departments get involved and they shut it down. Don't do that. Do what the FBI does. The guy that's really, has figured out a whole new way to break the law, hire him to help you catch the next criminals, kind of a thing. They should be doing the same thing. Like, recruit this guy, because you're how can we breathe life into this? He's already doing the development for you. Just acquire his game and release it, kind of a thing.
So this lets me get to the point that I really wanted to speak to, which is the fact of how were Star Wars video games treated prior to the Disney takeover of the company? Because I do think it's worth mentioning on the show. I don't actually think this is 100% an EA blame, right? Like, we can absolutely blame EA for being so pathetic as to release one game twice in going on 6 years now, when they bought the rights to 10 years with the understanding that there would be 3 major studios that could all be putting out games. And at this stage, only one has done it, and they did it twice. Nothing else has. Every other game that has been started has been canceled, except for the Fallen Jedi one from Respawn.
Okay.
That, who knows what happens in 6 months regarding that, They didn't even give them stage time at the last major presentation. Instead, they went out and talked to the director and the frickin' audience.
But there's an EA this year. It's not supposed to be released until this fall if that schedule is maintained. Although I fully expect it to go into next quarter,
we'll see.
2021. But they could theoretically make it the big deal for this EA or this E3. Excuse me.
Right, which would be great. They finally came out with a second game, but how was it managed prior to EA and, quite frankly, before Disney decided to do an exclusive contract with EA? It was managed basically that game studios basically were able to come to Lucasfilm and say, "Hey, listen, we've got this idea. Can we run with it?" Mm-hmm. And Lucasfilm said, "Yeah, go for it." And then when
they would negotiate some percentage of their sales,
right? Then they would negotiate.
They were the publisher, like.
Lucasfilm was the publisher.
Yeah, LucasArts.
But sometimes they were also the licensor. There were plenty of other game studios that were also allowed to make games, and then Lucasfilm would put their stamp seal of approval, and yes, of course, probably take some financial cut. But it was really much more, it's actually very similar to, I'm sure a lot of people have recently heard of the fan movie that got released on YouTube short. It's a Darth Vader Shadows type thing.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there was all kinds of stuff because it was Disney was starting legal proceedings to completely choke them out, sue them,
which was a total misunderstanding,
copyright infringement. But then, from all accounts, what happened was Lucasfilm themselves actually stepped in and said, "Excuse me, we have always had this relationship with all of our fan community that they have the right to do this. We don't recognize it as any kind of official canon. The only thing we ask is that they not monetize whatever fan created stuff they make. Period. But you can use our IP."
He wasn't allowed to use any of the music either. But there was a conversation with LucasArts before he put it out. So
this whole thing worries me so much. At what stage, here I am. I'm an armor crafter for the 501st, right? And I make Boba Fett helmets. So what happens and I sell them to people that are building Boba Fett suits, right? So that they can be in the 501st. So is Disney going to shut me down because I'm monetizing their IP? That's what worries me about this kind of thing.
That has been the fear in all of these content or creative communities since the day Disney made the purchase. Now, we've actually been able to see that Disney's been held off, and this latest is actually the splashiest, biggest threat we've seen from Disney. But yes, that is always a potential threat. Now you could also say, "Hey, I just made this cool futuristic dystopian sci-fi helmet that you would like to buy, something that like a mercenary would use." And you don't call it a bounty hunter,
you
get around certain things.
Slightly different angle.
Right. And look, it's gotten a circular eye visor.
And then you patent it so that you've got it protected. Yeah, absolutely.
But so realistically, I think this fundamentally comes down to the fact that Disney made a purchase and made an exclusive contract. Now, like, they could still put some of their, ridiculous controls, but if they had at least not done this ridiculous single contract with an unproven company that has a really terrible, had previous to this contract, a terrible.
Now, come on, Red. Now you know why why Disney did it. $800 million for
course.
freaking FIFA Ultimate
And
mode.
instant
They wanted some of that. Come on.
instant gratification, poor business planning, short-sightedness on the road. They made a 2-year decision based off of a 10-year contract, and then even in those first 2 years, they didn't get a single game. It
So,
took
so
3 or 4
let
years
me
to
ask you
approve.
guys this, because I think a lot of this depends on how this contract is structured, right? Because if you let's say before EA came in, all of these people were working on their projects. They'd work with Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm would do the stamp of approval, take some cut, but out of all of that was making arbitrarily. It's come up with an amount, $100,000 a year, off of that. I know it's probably a lot more, but hey, let's just say that. Then EA comes along and says, hey, if you give us the exclusive right to make Star Wars games and no one else is allowed to, we'll pay you $200,000 a year for the length of the contract. So, hey, I mean, it makes sense to Disney, right? Hey, we make more money than doing that. Sure, let's do it. Boom. After that, they're out of the gaming business. They don't need to license anything. It's all taken care of. EA is going to do it all. And EA, then if they want to put out no games a year, have a total and utter monopoly on that and can completely do that. And it's irrelevant to Disney. It's irrelevant to LucasArts because they're not in the gaming business anymore. EA is. But LucasArts is still making more money that way than they would otherwise. Could that be what's going on?
No, because it's demonstrable that the revenue from Star Wars video games has had a precipitous drop since this contract was made. So, while certainly they could say, "Hey, at least we're guaranteed $200,000 a year for 10 years." Okay, so great, you just made $1 million. Are you kidding me? Get half a dozen different programmers who have a cool Star Wars idea, and you're going to be able to get $100,000 from each of them easy, just because the Star Wars gamer fan base is enough that they will easily be able to pay $100,000 to freaking Lucasfilm in a heartbeat just by putting out a game with Star Wars on it.
Well, but you are forgetting, though, that as long as there's a Star Wars game running, Disney gets paid. It's 30% of whatever of the licensing fee is what they have to pay. I assume it's not a one-time deal. I mean, I don't know how you.
No, I know. I'm speaking to the example that Sakari gave us.
Well, I know.
So I have no understanding whatsoever.
They don't have to make it. They just get the money. Like, so for them, this is a win-win. It's just whether or not the Disney folks are mad that they're not getting as much money as they thought they were going to get.
Exactly.
When they came into this deal.
It's the Disney exit
we
clause.
don't know.
That's what I'm concerned.
We don't know where that is exactly. I mean, there's so many people. I think the guy on the Kind of Funny Games like talked about that some too. About where's the off ramp, and some people were like, the off ramp I thought would have been hit by now, and yet here we are. So this is mind-boggling to me in that Disney still seems to be okay. Now, there's always some rumors that they're in discussions of, they're talking to other studios and stuff, but they're always just rumors. So, and not ones that I really put much credence in, because where you hear about them from.
That just keeps everyone at bay anyway. Oh, we're in talks to. Oh, so everyone's like, oh, well, cool, they're in talks. Well, we're going to chill out and wait patiently.
I saw that the director for Stargate was in talks with MGM that they might be able to someday in the future do some sort of release of something. So, of course, that means 2019 is going to be the year of Stargate.
Drum this up and then get all mad when it doesn't happen.
And, I mean, the other thing, too, is I just wonder if Disney was really, prepared of how much EA lives and dies by their data. I mean, I'm a huge data person, clearly. But they market research everything, and that pigeonholes how EA approaches a Star Wars game, right? Again, in one of these articles I posted, they talked about how EA's market research was all about lightsabers and the Force, and that's what their market research tells them. And that was another ding for the Visceral, Star Wars Uncharted game, that it was going to be, a scoundrel, and and it was them flying around and doing all this stuff, and EA was like, well, that's not what our market research says that people want to see when they play a Star Wars game. And when you just go that direction, then you're limiting, right, your choices. And we've already seen that to a point. So we could do a whole other show on this.
I'm sure we could.
We didn't even talk about EA's financial issues, but I don't think this is going to get any better until either Andrew Wilson goes or Disney pulls the license from EA, because I don't feel, we haven't heard anything about any other games out there that are, well, no, we know there's the Motive one, and then their reboot for the third or fourth time of this game that bounced all over the place out of the Vancouver studio.
Oh yeah, the new replacement that can be released faster.
Yeah. I don't know. Now again,
my opinion is, how is it back then versus how is it now?
Yeah, it
was great back then. How is it now? Not great. Do I want it to change?
I know what the next game's going to be.
Excellent. Go ahead and talk right over me right now. I want to hear what you have to say.
I'm sorry, but it finally struck because I just made the connections in my brain off of what Elise was saying, because they like to follow the market research. They know that it's got to be about lightsabers and force powers. And what is the hottest thing since sliced bread right now? Battle Royale. It's going to be some kind of battle royale arena with lightsabers. You're going to be down and running around and throwing force powers instead of shooting guns, and swinging lightsabers for your melee attacks. And, it's going to be the cash grab of the millennium.
Battlefront 3.
Do skins like Fortnite, and it's a cash cow. We'll make $800 million.
It's the dances that sell in Fortnite.
It is,
yeah. Which is so funny that now some of the artists want to try and copyright their dances. Not possible. Not copyrightable. Sorry.
But they can sure sue over, that's for sure.
They can try.
And Neff wholly agrees with you, Redna, about please no battle royale. So there's a lot that can be said about this. I mean, we as SWTOR players zooming in, we all want our game to do well. But games have a cycle; they have a lifetime, and I don't think it does us any good not to see the writing on the wall if the writing is indeed on the wall, right? But at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with wanting your game to be prolonged and zooming out to take a look at the studio that runs this stuff and say, hey, studio, you're doing a good job. Are you not coming to an end anytime soon? Because of course that will affect it.
Ultima Online is still running.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's some that have been out there for.
I mean, it's not getting content updates, but it's still running. And there's still supposedly a team that works on it. I don't know if it's one dude in a corner, but making sure nothing breaks. But I mean, it is still going. And
when the antenna falls over, he's the guy that puts it back up.
And you could still play Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. There's full lobbies every weekend. So,
well, I bet you right now there's Diablo 2 people online playing together. People find their game and they stay with it forever. Magic Ace, would you like to thank our viewers and patrons?
I will try to. There's a baby in my microphone. We would like to say thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and for chit-chatting, for lurking. We love the lurkers. For the people who are here for the first time, welcome. It's great to have you. And Magic Baby is so excited, and she wants to say thank you. Thank you so much for loving this game and loving this show. Or the people who hate us on Reddit, thank you for hating us. We love you too. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. The council is adjourned. If you'd like to reach us, you can email us at thecouncil@thecouncilswotor.com. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/thecouncilswotor. You can find Elise on Twitter at abrown35, Magic Ace at the Magic Ace, Redna at R3DN4, and me at... Somebody's talking about a birthmark. Me at my birthmark.
It's gone now, but it was right there, and it was purple.
Me at R3DN4 and Sakari at I am Sakari. Also, don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/thecouncilswotor, where patrons can catch the articles we're talking about behind the scenes and exclusive backstage access to our after show chat. That's it for this week, guys. All his life as he looked away, to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was.
I understand.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Forgive me, Master.